Welcome to the Qualitex podcast. This episode is part of a series about CMOs. I'm Yan Kugel, your host and the director at Qualistory, where we provide with engaging online GMP education, live, private sessions, and on demand. For more information, please visit www.qualistory.com. Joining me today as my co-host is Ammar Badwy, the CEO at Pharmaoffer, a B2B platform for APIs. And our guest today is Philippe Tschopp. Philippe is the head of business development at Glatt Pharma, and they are a CDMO based in Germany. And we're gonna talk with him about what CMOs are, what are the different type of CMO, CDMOs are there, what is Glatt Pharma, what they are doing, who they are serving, and what is the purpose of CDMOs and what is their future. So let's get to it. Philippe, welcome to the Qualitex podcast. Today we have another special edition where Ammar Badwy is joining me as the co-host, and our topic is CDMOs. And with us we have Philippe, who is the head of business development, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks a lot for
Thanks a
having me
lot
here.
for having me here.
Welcome, pleasure to have you here. So maybe you can give a bit of information about your role and what impact it has on a CDMO. So we will get soon into definitions, but maybe a bit about yourself. What's your passion in it, and how you got to it, and what's your role?
Okay, very gladly do so. So my role in the CDMO business part of Glatt Pharmaceutical Services is we are specialized in solid dosage form development and manufacturing. A hell of a lot of development of complex solid dosage forms, and at the same time we do clinical trials, supplies, organization, and distribution. So we keep, I would say, our services along the value chain of pharmaceutics, and this we do out of Germany and out of the United States. Interestingly, I came to this over my role in the sales of excipients, because at the Glatt Group, where I work from, they launched some excipients in the early 2000s, and I was one of the person that brought them to the market, so I got familiar with the Glatt Group. And then they were looking for a business developer, and so I joined in 2012. And since then, I have this role, which is changing over time, of course. And what is really nice and interesting, as we serve not only big pharma, but a lot of small startup companies, spin-offs of universities, we have access to highly interesting projects. And this is something that drives my motivation, of course. Different people, heterogeneous partners, and value bringing projects to the patients in the end. So, and our patient groups, they go from very early child in her life cycle up to the geriatric population, and including even the partners that we have in our lives, like dogs, cats, and other animals. So it's a wide spectrum and a very interesting field to work in.
Yeah, interesting. You said Glatt is like it's a CMO, but you read a lot like CMO, CDMO, CRO. Yeah, please help me a bit. What are the different types of CMO?
You have to divide a little bit in the phases. So us as a CDMO, we start when we go for a first galenical form. Beforehand, it's more the CRO business. So as long as we don't have any galenical form to develop, we don't enter it. And but we follow then up from the early phase, galenical development, formulation development, process development, process optimization, formulation optimization, clinical trials material, from all the phases up then to commercial. And in many cases, we transfer then the product over to a manufacturer, to a CMO, or to our partner. So And in this world, you have different parts. As you mentioned and asked before, what is the difference? You have quite a bit of companies that are in these very early phases to really get the first basic formulations to get into trials, to evaluate the drug further. And then it comes our part, which includes nearly everything, but on a very modular basis. And as I said, we are a little bit different than the traditional CMO because we do a lot of development and do also the manufacturing if it fits. And the traditional CMO would then more be the guys that do the large scale manufacturing and do the development to drive this business. This changes a little bit over time, of course. So there are many CMOs, they have also patented technologies for which they do the early from scratch development as well. But I would say there is still this CDO and CMO space and some in the gray middle field. And I would say we are some in the gray middle field.
Okay. And once a client from you is going from your company to, let's say, a larger CMO, is that something to celebrate, or are you losing a customer there?
If we achieve this point, we have to celebrate because this means that we have done a successful development, which went already through some phases or is even pre-commercial or commercial. What we do in that case is a tech transfer that we fully support. If it goes to a CMO or the owner of the product himself, it doesn't matter. And it's a point to celebrate. And within the Glatt Group, of course, you can imagine we have this big advantage because we are the equipment manufacturer of the equipments we mainly use. So if we have done a development on a fluid bed equipment from Glatt that we use, the chances are pretty high that in the end, the CMO or any other uses a Glatt fluid bed again. So it's really time to celebrate. Huh?
How does Glatt sets itself apart between the niche of the CDMOs? So basically, do you think it basically because you manufacture the equipment and you are in the middle, so it means that you can take a company from the development phase to the medium scale up before you give it to the commercialization?
I think it's the whole that we can offer as a Glatt Group with specific expertise. So we have even a division that makes turnkey engineering. So it means we do greenfield setup of production plants. So literally we can follow a development project from a very early phase up to a plant production. So this is already something which is completely different to any other CDMO, CMO. Secondly, we have direct access on technology and process experts out of the Glatt Group. So we do not only run the equipment, we also have the latest know-how in this equipment. And thirdly, I would say it's the niche that we play in. Within the solid dosage form, so if you imagine this still, although everybody says different and it will change, we are still 70% of all the pharmaceutical products are in solid dosage forms. Okay. So, and within this big bunch of business, we are very much focused on multi-particulates, on controlled release, on pellet technologies, and this is a niche. So there we have, I would say we have a small niche that we play in, but surrounded with a lot of know-how and a lot of opportunities that we can service our customer either modular or as a full-fledged solution provider. And this is what, as a USP or as a in confrontation to others, this makes us unique.
Who is your client, basically? What is the range of clients that you have?
The range of clients can be a startup company that has one compound, be it a spin-off of a successful spin-off of a university, or sometimes, like in the past, some employees take a substance that a big multinational does not want, and they need the full service to develop such product, to have a concept that fits the purpose. We have then mid-sized pharmaceutical companies, but we also have the large multinationals.
Let's say that I am doing my research on a university and I found a very interesting molecule. What is the moment that a CDMO comes in? Are you guys scouting on different universities, or what's the moment that you contact these people?
I personally have always an open exchange with academia universities, because I think this is a big source of what is possible in the future. But it's not that we would go to scout what they develop. It's more like at a certain point of time when they say, this product or this compound, we want to move ahead with this. We need a dosage. We need a commercial product at a certain point of time, or of course, let's say do feasibility trials. Then we would come into the game, and usually we would be contacted by them. Perhaps they know us, or they saw us at a conference, or saw some of our technology in a webinar, and we keep the activities like this. We would not really go to scout at universities.
But to develop a medicine, you also need, of course, investments.
Yeah,
that's usually where investors come in. Do they also play a role in choosing the right partner to further develop the product?
For the investors, you have two types of risks, or at least two types that we can mention here. First of all is, does the substance bring the results, right? And then, of course, it is also with whom do you partner? And then there it can be very much important for, let's say, the founder of this small company that is looking to get the money, that you have a valid consortium. So I think in the decision tree, if that an investor invests in such an opportunity, I think the CDMO and the reputation of a CDMO can play a role, absolutely.
So it's more the venture capitalists and the investors are the ones who help choose the right CDMO, or it is left to the company owner? How does it usually work?
To be honest, I'm not very sure about that, but based on the discussions we have, it's the company owner that looks for valid partners, so he has better chances to find the investors.
So usually those people, they may have little experience in the pharmaceutical production, so they come from the university. So what is your advice? How should they choose the right CDMO for their purposes?
I think they should, first of all, use their network, check, very openly check with the CDMO partner, thoroughly check what experience there is it the right partner. I often say you have to find the smiles in the face of your partner. And you see it in meetings, you see it even in a video call. If you ask certain questions, and especially the scientists, they start to smile or keep calm, and you feel that they're comfortable. This gives, for me, much more of confidence level than any highlighting brochure what the capabilities are. Because once you ask, have you done something like this already? How comfortable do you feel with this project? And you feel hesitation. This gives a complete other picture than if somebody goes, yeah, feasible, but we need to consider A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And there, I think an open communication with potential partners asking your network, have you experienced with these people? Who would you go to? I think it's really like a small due diligence, which makes absolutely sense. Not to exaggerate, because you don't have time and budget, but I think in our industry it's a lot of how do you say, mouth by mouth propaganda of projects that people did with a CMO, CDMO, and then I think still it's very much important, as every compound is different and every project has its different challenges, that you really check yourself and feel comfortable. I always say to any of our partners, both of us, and I always say both of us have to feel comfortable, because comfort level on both ends, it's important, because in the end, in a successful project, you stick together for many, many years. We know exactly the development cycle. So not only I say the technical part, but also the way that you drive the business is important. So there are many aspects to it that, as you say, some unexperienced people might not yet be aware.
Is it important for you to believe in the project, or doesn't really matter as long as you can help them producing it?
Very good question. I prefer projects that we believe in, because we're all people in the end, and people that projects that make sense in the heads of everybody. Of course, they are. You feel another momentum in it potentially, right? And on the other hand, we are a service provider, and we cannot judge a book by its cover. So sometimes it could look very weird. I like the weird ones that some people say, how can this work? And they are successful in the end. So there is not a one-on-one. I think it's the whole thing. And we do, but we also give out our estimation. So if somebody comes and says, look, I would like to have a formulation XYZ with attribute A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we feel that this is critical, we would mention it at a very early stage.
When you start the first conversations with a new client or a potential client, of course they talk about their product that they would like to develop, and then you probably share some of your knowledge and some ideas about how to improve the product. But how does the conversation continue from there?
So what we usually do, we need to have a deep understanding of what the partner, the customer needs for his product. What is the aim, drug product profile? What is the surrounding? There is a big difference between like an OTC product to a prescription drug. What is the size of the population? Is it an orphan drug? Is it blockbuster-like? We try to understand this part in depth, of course, because we also needed to do. And from there on, once we have a good understanding what the customer needs, we would draft the so-called project plan, which is nothing else than a layout of all the activities we foresee at this very point. And there it depends strongly on the customer again, to which extent he needs it. Some would go for a early feasibility and say, no, we do the feasibility and then we have a look further. Others, especially for budget reasons and for time reason, they would consider up to commercial scale. So we can then draft a plan that is something like 30 pages long with detailed layout of how many trials for what and how, and then stability and further tests, quality by design, and the like. So it really depends on the needs of our customer and how in depth and how long in advance we drag this out. can also be a topic of the budgeting, right?
Yeah.
So some companies, they need the full-fledged budget. And of course, we provide this even with a preliminary time plan.
You have to do a lot of work before the first
Absolutely.
product comes out of the manufacturing plant. So I can imagine that it's quite difficult to compare different CMOs, which one fits best to your project. Because yeah, they need to do a lot of, they have to put a lot of value before you can sign a contract, or how does that work?
Exactly. This is, I would say, this is the critical part of each and every start of a project. That's what I said beforehand. We try to be very transparent in quite some details what we plan to do. And sometimes people say, "Oh, but this is really big." But once you go through it, because we then do once we send out this proposal, this very detailed proposal, we directly say, as soon as you had a look at it, let's have a call, and we go through the plan step by step by step. So we explain already at that very point of time, our customer, our partner, what is the logics behind. And then say, okay, but by the way, we have this and this piece of information we have done this part of trials already. We can skip that. We have the information. So let's take an example. Compatibility studies, very much of importance. If you don't do them, you might have done 1 year of work, and suddenly in stability you see, the compound does not like excipient A, B, C, or whatever. So in a very first phase, sometimes we don't know if they have done these studies. So we put them in the plan. Then it comes out, no, but we have done the screening of 40 excipients, so that's none of an issue, so we can skip that. What is for us very much important is to have a detailed layout that later on you can go and say, but we planned to do this, but we skipped it out of a specific reason. And you mentioned budget. In some cases, I mentioned QBD, quality by design. So to get your design space and check critical process and product parameters, we would do it in an early phase in a lab scale. But some companies, due to their setup, they need fast movement to the first clinical. So we then would skip it together with the customer, but discuss the risk of changing or skipping the schedule. And I think this is, so to say, an integral part of how to launch a product. It's like building up a pyramid. The pyramid has a good solid base that takes some time potentially to build up, but then you go on faster, right? And this is what we try to do. So clear out the most things in a very early phase. And this is something also that we do in the early phases. We have, apart from business development like me, that has no scientific background, we integrate our scientific team in a very early phase, because I do not want to have the situation that somebody says, the BD guy said he can granule this product, and 2 months down the road, and that's already time and money, the first scientific talk starts and says, we cannot granulate this. So you're absolutely right. Before we can start a project and before we can sign a contract, there is from both sides. So from the customer, he needs to get familiar. He needs to check a lot. Is this the right partner? He's potentially in evaluation with at least 3 to 5, I don't know. And then he has to make his scorecard and say, okay, I feel most comfortable with those guys. And at our end, it's the same. Until we have the contract signed and booked also slots and the like, we don't know what happens, really. Of course, you get a good feeling and you reduce the unknowns, but it's a big investment before you really start together. Both sides. Yeah.
And after you sign the contract, how much is the client then involved in the design, the production? Do they always sit with you on the table, or they leave everything to you?
It depends. It depends. So a lot of customers ask us gently, can we be present when you do the trials? And we look at them, and usually our answer would be, we would love that you are there. Okay, because you have to imagine the combination of knowledge is the client usually knows much more about his API or his compound. We know a little bit more about our process usually on the formulation, and put together the two things, you have this learning curve, and you can decide much faster because time is also of essence. So we want to have we like to have the customer as a integrated part of the project, as we like to be an integrated part of the project. So in my opinion, it happens to collaborate very, very closely. In some cases, it's can also be, look, do the trials and nearly call me up when it's done with the results. This is very rarely because people need to understand what we do.
And with which regulations then do you need to comply? Is it still the GLP phase? Are you still in the or are you already phasing into the GMP window?
So we define the phases between technical trials and GMP. And in the early phase, where we are finding the formulation and the process, and we do the prototypes and decide which prototypes works best, which process works best. This is all on the technical. Although we are, in most of the cases, we are in our GMP facility, but we do technical trials in the GMP facility. And as soon as we go for the first clinical trial material, we would then be on the full GMP. So our site is inspected by the local authorities, by international authorities, by our customers. And this is, of course, then also when you are in a development in a very early phase already, you have your inspections or your audits by your customers. And interestingly enough, a lot of customers, they come like for a pre-inspection while you talk if you do the project, because as I said before, it's nice to have a nice brochure with the equipment and your capabilities. But I always say to the people, if you invest the money to do services, you better have a look. Who are the people really? And how is the site looking in real? And now for the Corona crisis period, what we have done is virtual tours, for instance. So to still, I mean, it's not live. It's not face-to-face, but you can still see in a quite live environment how it looks like. So this is very much of importance, absolutely.
And how important is it that a CMO, CDMO is nearby? I mean, you have two plants, one in the United States and one in Germany. Can you also serve clients from, let's say, China or India?
Absolutely. I mean, the focus is logical, is still quite local, but we have a lot of international customers as well. But then you have always the time difference topics, of course. I think the people really tend to stay quite local or as local as possible because it eases things. Certainly before Corona, this was the case. Nowadays, I think it changed a little bit. So people are more open to say, you know what, you do it over there, then let's make a video call. We can do that. We know now. So I think this could be kind of a change. Still, I don't believe that we adapt so fast in our mental behavior and that we prefer to drive half an hour, 2 hours, or instead of taking a plane and being away 1 or 2 weeks. So
So from the regulatory point of view, right? So you said there is sometimes somebody who is attached to the CDMO, and we said there is the GMP window, and usually the company is responsible to comply with the regulations. So how does it look like with a CDMO? Who carries this responsibility with the batch releases?
In some cases, so for the batch release, it depends how the CMO, CDMO is set up. usually you have an integrated QP release, but it can be with the setup that the customer says. For instance, if you are with a CMO that is doing the finished packaging, then it would be logical to have the final QP release at the CMO. In our case, as we do a lot of intermediate granules or final tableting and only bulk, we have a second partner that does the packaging, for instance. And then very often it is the partner that does the QP release or the final packer. We offer this as a separate service as well nowadays. So there are different setups. If you ask for the mainstream, I would consider that, especially with the CMOs, the QP release would be with the CMO, especially with the large ones that do everything. And otherwise, there are different setups possible.
Right. And you said that usually when the drug is successful and it goes to the full scale production, then usually you have partners who are CMOs, or then the company goes to a full scale CMO. And how does it work with the tech transfer, right? So you already have all your processes, right? So do you work together to transfer all the facilities or the whole shebang to the other company? Or sometimes you say, oh, we don't work with them. Sorry, it's not our responsibility. So how does it look like?
No. So, some of the products we manufacture ourselves in the end. So this is also increasing, but of course, tech transfer is fully supported by us. So we don't, and this is what I said at the modular end. So some customer, they come for us for just one process and they jump off again, which is perfectly fine. And a tech transfer to another site, we don't care where it goes to. We prepare everything to support at the maximum to have a successful tech transfer. So there is no missing touch points there or things that we say, oh no, we don't work with those guys. No, absolutely not. Full support is important to be successful.
And to build on Ammar's question, right? So he asked if there are customers from China or India. So I presume probably not so much, because it costs more to manufacture there, because probably they have their own CDMOs. But the question is also, to build on it, do you feel that there is some escape of local customers to China and India right now, that they, at least for the CDMO phase?
No. Frankly spoken, no, and this has, in my opinion, different reasons. First of all, perhaps we don't see it and don't realize it. So bad market intelligence, this can be one on my shoulders. But I also see there is a big difference still on the quality expectations. So those countries are not yet seen as the quality leaders. And I think this some first movers might do. I see some development popping up really from European companies, but in the big mass, I don't think that they already like to jump over too much. They might try, and then there is what I mentioned before, also nearby time differences, mentality. Mentality plays a big role. I mean, already in Europe, we have so many different mentalities, but it's still a common ground, let's say. It's much easier to communicate within the European community, although as a Swiss, I'm not within the community, but still, I think I understand it. And then you have, of course, cultural differences already that can pop in. It's just like saying something and understanding the same thing. Okay, so this might be. I think it will further evolve for sure, because there is high quality in those countries. If you look at South Korea as a CDMO market, which is on a very high level, Singapore is popping up. We have Indonesia, we have Vietnam. also coming. So I think you also have to distinguish a little bit, and perhaps that's why I don't see it in which field. I see a lot of activities in the, I would call it basic development, more easier environment or formulation and processes. There I see much bigger chances that things are already more in those countries. But I think for the more complex, for the more innovative things, the tendencies or the chances that they stick in Europe are much bigger. I think we have to divide which stage we are and which complexity we are.
And do you think that, let's say, in the next 20 years, what will change in the industry, or what should CMOs focus on from your perspective?
That's a good question into the crystal ball. I think in general, as the way that we develop products will change with artificial intelligence, with predictive development, there is a big challenge ahead of us also as CDMOs, because we have to think about why is somebody coming to a CMO, CDMO? There are different reasons. One is time. I don't have time and capacity. It's cheaper, or it's at least as good or better than what I can do myself, or I don't have the technology that I need. And there might be many, many others. So we have to really think what happens in the development space, in the manufacturing space. Now we have the first upcoming demands all the time. Can you develop continuously? Continuous manufacturing processes, they come more and more, still on a very low level, but they come more and more. So people start to ask, can you do the core business, the core processes continuously? What can you help us there? Then, of course, when I mentioned beforehand, 70% is still solid dosage forms. We have a lot of large molecules that are usually injected. People will tend to get all the bioproducts into oral. So also those challenges at the other side. And now we had a big vaccination topic. How do you set yourself up to, I would say, rapid peaks, which is, we have such a predictable industry, but with what we learned over the last 1.5 years, how to get more flexible. I don't like the word agile because it's used too many times, but it's also important for a service provider to remain in this field and adapt very fast, which again means sometimes going for risks. Okay, so how fast do you adapt? How much front running can you do? Do you want to do? How much new technologies do you want to bring in? And as I said, artificial intelligence, for me, it's one of the big topics that will come up and will be potentially changing our environment, not only for CMOs and CDMOs, but the whole pharma industry.
So it means that soon we will have much more feasible molecules that come to market. So right now it takes a lot of time to find the right one, right? So from the statistic, from 10,000, only one reaches the market. So with AI, we will be able to find and pinpoint the right molecules much quicker, and it means there will be much more potential drugs on the market. Does it mean then that there is soon there will be much more room for additional CMOs, or the current CMOs will need to grow?
Yeah, I think it strongly depends on also how the mentality goes from outsourcing the make or buy decisions in the latest years. I mean, the wave of outsourcing was there, and it does not seem to stop. But we can have a back wave that companies start to say, "Oh, we don't want to outsource any longer because we want to keep some more knowledge with us." At the moment, this trend is not there, but who knows? So who knows also how the collaborative models that we have now done over the last 1.5 years will evolve for the whole industry? Or do we go back to it's mine and I do that and I have this knowledge? Will the knowledge sharing be further increased? Will it stabilize? Will it go down? And how does this have an effect on the outsourcing partner? So I think there are many questions up and running.
There is that thing a while ago that you could buy a Ford car. You can choose any color you want as long as it's black. You know.
I think it was white.
Yeah,
but black is good too.
Since then, a lot of things are more customized. So
Yeah.
you can choose any color, but also with all the things that mobile apps measure, that you don't fit one person in a group anymore, but there's very much customized products. Do you think that will also work for medicines in the future?
I mean, nowadays, and I'm not an expert, but nowadays we talk more and more about individualized medicine. This will be a driver over the upcoming years. It will be proven how you can apply this, but the technologies are there. This will come more and more. We understand more and more that I take a stupid example, but a paracetamol 500 milligram is potentially valid for Ammar, but not for Yan. Perhaps he needs 300. It's a very bad example, but just to say this topic of personalized medicine, and in this case also, of course, this flexibility, this will have an impact on the market, in my opinion. Although, as I said, I'm not an expert in. I just look at it. I see a lot of scientific work going into it. There is no reason. There is also the reason, or one of the reasons, why 3D printing and other adaptive technologies are popping up. So, yeah, as I said, flexibility in all ranges will, I think, increase.
So from the CDMO point of view, it is possible. So that would not be the issue, probably.
I don't think so. There is always the question: do you have the technology to do? Let's say, for instance, 1 tablet per person. The technology is there since years. The other part is then, what is the cost and the benefit of this? Does it make sense for a paracetamol to adapt the dosage? I don't think so. But for a highly targeted treatment that in any case is very costly, there it might make sense. Yes. So I think there will be also, we have to divide a little bit between the OTC market more and standard therapeutics, where it potentially never will make sense, to very targeted treatments. And here I'm going on thin ice with what I say, but yeah, technology is there. It has to evolve, right? And if you look at how other industries evolve, lately I saw an article, I think it was 1965 or 69, where somebody said, you will be able to walk around with your telephone. You will have a telephone in your hand outside, and you will be able to call your friends. Imagine, this is not so many years ago, and what do we do now? And these developments, with all the regulations in the pharmaceutical and medtech industry, of course, they take longer, but things are moving, and the things are moving fast, I think.
But do you think that, so it's a good point what Ammar also means, that, right, so with personalized medicines, usually some genetic manipulation of cells, or some specific antibodies to target specific cells of a specific person. So is it really something that a CDMO can help with, or do you need really specialized facilities or really specialized crew for such, because you cannot manufacture it probably in batches because it's personalized, right?
I think there it's really, if you call them CDMO or outsourcing partner, or it's done really by the originator, I think this is something that is not in the field of mainstream CDMO, this will be a very specific topic.
So it will be another niche that will be
Yeah.
grown.
I mean, like the mRNA technology, which was built up over many, many years and since short time peaks up. And all the CMOs are running after, or the whole industry is running after. So I think the companies that had this early mover activities, they are now in the winning field.
So, Philip, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and sharing your perspectives on this fascinating industry. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks a lot for having me here. It was very nice to talk with you and interesting.
Thank you for tuning in and listening or watching this episode of Qualitalks podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider sharing it with your friends and subscribe. Stay compliant and see you in the next one.